they're utilizing photographs that are taken by the homeowner, taken by the business owner, and analyzed under whatever proprietary program that they're developing through AI. And the problem is that yes, it takes the human element out, takes personality out, takes feelings out, but the human element is what makes the difference sometimes between a claim being paid and a claim not being paid. And there are certain things that an AI program is just not going to be able to see and just not going to be able to understand.
From humble beginnings, Insurance Claim HQ has grown to one of the largest property casualty firms in the country. We didn't do it alone, and you shouldn't either. Every week, we're talking to claims professionals and top experts from all over, all to help you grow your business and make you stronger. Let's level up together. I'm Galen Hair. Welcome to the Level Up Claims Podcast. AI is transforming the insurance world, but is it making claims easier or just more complicated? With hurricane season heating up and wildfire coverage shrinking, adjusters, contractors, and attorneys face more uncertainty than ever. Today, we're joined by Florida attorney Chad J. Robinson to unpack where claims are, where they're headed, and what professionals need to know to stay ahead of the AI and automation game. Chad, thanks for joining us.
Good to be here.
So we had a little bit of a discussion at the Summit Live, but I'd like to kind of pick up where we left off, if that's okay. But before we do that, you are a man of many, many paths and careers. So obviously I know you as the lawyer out of Florida. I think that's how a lot of people know you, but you also, how did you get into sports announcing?
Well, I've been doing it since high school, and I've just been lucky enough to kind of get a job from high school, then into college at University of Florida. I announced there and did broadcasting there. And then it came back down to South Florida, where I'm from, and was able to, through word of mouth, get really great opportunities. I used to do the Sony Ericsson Open, which is now turned into the Miami Open, and do various colleges around town, as well as the Miami Marlins. And then right now, currently, I'm the stadium voice for the Miami Hurricanes, basketball and football. So I've been really lucky in getting those jobs through word of mouth, and not too much, there's not too much competition out there in the South Florida area, which always helps. But yeah, it's a nice change of pace from the run-of-the-mill day of a lawyer. And it's it's the hobby that maybe one day when I retire, it'll be a full-time gig, but not today with 3 children.
So you say there's like not a lot of competition out there, but I feel like there's also not a lot of jobs out there in that field. So, I mean, it's got to even out, right?
That is true. I mean, there's just, there's only one big school in Miami. There's only one baseball team, only one basketball team. And once they find their guy, luckily, usually there's not a lot of turnover once you kind of establish your position. So yeah, while there's maybe a spot for you once you get picked, and so there's not many people that are going to come and take your job, so to speak. But you're absolutely right. There's not enough to go around, which is I guess lucky for me in this particular situation, when I've already kind of been picked and assigned where I am.
Well, let's talk about your practice of law. So how did you get into first party work? Like, what was it that made Chad Robinson want to handle insurance claims?
Yeah, so it happened very organically. I graduated law school in 2008 and started representing the insurance company side, and just fell into first party as well as third party coverage, which is essentially what I do today on the plaintiff side. Went through the whole rigmarole of being a defense attorney, learning how insurance companies deal with certain issues. And then in 2014, I decided to switch to the policyholder side. not the most exciting circumstances, but I really love what I do. I really love um, bringing homeowners or business owners an opportunity to rebuild after a storm or rebuild after a fire, and it's very fulfilling. Obviously, as we all know and has been advertised, the changes that have uh, been undergoing in Florida. So it makes it incredibly difficult to bring those wonderful results to clients, especially in Florida.
Yeah, and I know you're licensed in a few other states, but I'd like to stay with that. So you did defense work. It sounds like for about 6 years, which is so much longer than I did. But what do you think you learned from that? I feel like there's a number of lawyers in the first party space that like all they ever did was plaintiff work. And I mean, I considered my experience to be invaluable. What do you think you took away from your defense work that you bring to the plaintiff side now?
I think that what I brought to the plaintiff side now is that there's a lot of good people who know what they're doing on the defense side, and that you it's not all bad over there. It's just not. And we're all people, and we should deal with each other as we're all people. And I find that that approach has led me to success on the plaintiff side. Additionally, just more kind of meat and bones, you understand how the analysis works on their side when they're looking at a claim and whether or not they're going to pay for the claim. So I think that it's a twofold situation where you're understanding how they analyze a claim, and that, at the end of the day, they're people doing their jobs, and that, just like any person you would meet, there's likable people and there's people that are not likable, and there's people that are terrible and there's people that are not terrible. So, in their analysis of the claim, I think the personality of the person, which shouldn't play a large part of it, does play a large part of it, which, and maybe to continue our conversation, is being taken out of the equation each and every day through artificial intelligence being injected into the claim analysis process.
And now's as good a time as ever to jump into it. Okay, so AI
I'm the king of
everywhere. AI is
transitions,
everywhere.
Galen. That's what
Huh?
happened. I'm the king of transitions.
The king of
The
transitions.
king of
Chad, I
transitions.
will say this, Chad, you are better than the vast majority of people at transitions. I notice you'll do it to me even in like a phone conversation.
Well, sometimes the conversation needs a transition. I don't know. Sometimes it does. Sometimes the flow needs to keep going down a
It's a
different path.
skill though to be able to move someone in a conversation to the next topic. Like, I don't know, when I move people to the topic I want to move them to, like I'm just like, look, this is what we're going to talk about now, but you're very good at getting people onto the topic you wanted to discuss even if they're trying to discuss something else. It's a skill.
Well,
It really
thanks.
is.
But, hearing a compliment from you is very odd sometimes. I mean, we're friends outside of the podcast world. And so it's very uncomfortable. All right. It's very uncomfortable hearing a compliment towards my way.
It has definitely been said at the office that I don't give compliments as often as some feel that I should, but it's something I will start working on.
Well,
All
that
right,
means
so
that
AI.
when you do, it's special and it's honest.
Well, it is honest. I agree. All right, AI. There's AI in a few ways to talk about, right? So we can talk about AI in like kind of our side of the industry, both legal and adjusters and stuff, and we will. But let's start with AI with the carriers, because I think that is something that everyone knows, like intuitively, is going on. But a lot of people don't know what is going on or how it's going on. So, what kind of AI do you believe or have you seen that the carriers have started using in the claims adjustment process?
I think it's so fun. I think it's at the fundamental level. I mean, I think it's just as soon as a claim comes in, it's automatically analyzed by AI. What do I mean by that? Because when we talk about AI, what do we mean by that? What are we talking about when we're saying AI? Well, I believe, and I'm not on the other side, but there used to be this program, if you will, Allstate used it, called Colossus, right? And Colossus was a program where in the personal injury world, they would plug in your injuries, so to speak, and out pops an analysis as to what the injury and claim is worth. Well, I believe that something like this is being applied to first party, frankly, because there's a lot of times where adjusters throughout the country don't even come out to the actual property anymore. They're utilizing photographs that are taken by the homeowner, taken by the business owner, and analyzed under whatever proprietary program that they're developing through AI. And the problem is that yes, it takes the human element out, it takes personality out, it takes feelings out, but the human element is what makes the difference sometimes between a claim being paid and a claim not being paid. And there are certain things that an AI program is just not going to be able to see and just not going to be able to understand. One of the things that I can think about is in a late notice claim, right? There's an explanation as to why a claim was reported, quote unquote, late, but that analysis is not going to be in an AI program. They may be able to type in or input the reason why it's late, but they're not going to be able to determine how a reasonable person would act in that particular position with the facts that they know. It's just not going to happen, at least at this point. I mean, I think that down the road we may be able to have AI that thinks like what a reasonable person would do in that situation.
Yeah, it's you said a few things there, so let's unpack some of that. So first of all, genius in my opinion. Like if I'm working for a carrier or I'm somehow a decision maker for a carrier, I think that it is an absolute genius move to get rid of in-person inspections and put the onus back on the policyholder to take photos of the damage. Like A, you're saving money, right? Because you're not sending someone out there. And B, when you don't catch all the damages, it's your policyholder's fault for not getting you good enough pictures or thorough enough pictures or pictures of the damaged areas, right? Like we know, you and I know, and everyone listening to this podcast knows that policyholders are not necessarily trained in identifying all the damage. But by the carriers pushing that responsibility off to the policyholder, which arguably is permitted in some policies, depending on how you read it, they are saving money. And then later, when they underpay, they get to blame the policyholder, which would be huge in bad faith states, like absolutely massive in bad faith states.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think that um, I was thinking about an anecdote that I could provide to this, where in Florida, the big thing is limited water coverage, where you're going to have about $10,000 if a water leak happens in your house. And in order to get more coverage, for me personally, I had to take a picture of every sink underneath the sink itself, and they still didn't give me the coverage because they didn't think that my pictures were good enough. And
Yeah.
I like to think that, I'm a professional in my field, and still I couldn't provide. I was providing the absence of damages. I was not even providing the damage. So I took a picture of the entire thing, and that still wasn't good enough for them. So to your point, you're absolutely right, is that it's going to be absolute evidence as to why they did not provide the appropriate photographs. Were they trying to hide something, et cetera, et cetera? But on the flip side, you can also say, well, the analysis was not done appropriately. The insurance company missed things because they relied on a layman to report the damage via photographs.
Yeah. Yeah. And from our perspective, like that's an obvious tactic that is used to underpay that claim, right? But they will shrug, throw up their hands and say, I mean, we asked our policyholder to show us everything that was damaged. And they do the same thing, right? Like this isn't a new strategy. This is just new with AI. From in-person inspections, we all remember the days, and they still happen all the time, where the adjuster gets deposed and they come out and say, well, I looked at everything the policyholder showed me. Yeah, okay, but they're not the expert. So, I mean, I think it's genius. Okay, so we've
I
got
hate that.
AI
By
in
the
the
way,
initial.
that I hate that excuse that they say, well, I just saw what where it's a roof claim, and the client, your client says, well, I also have interior damage. And then you tell You tell the insurance company there's interior damage, and they say, well, you didn't say that. Well, do the entire inspection of the property, find the damage, right? It's the every single person. I don't know how you feel, Galen, but when you depose these adjusters, they're always saying and I remember the conversations when I was a defense attorney. We're looking for coverage. We're not looking for ways to deny coverage. That's what everyone says. That's the rhetoric. But more and more, it seems like that is not what the situation is. Now, and I will acknowledge that the claims that come to us are the worst of the worst, meaning there are claims that are paid and we just don't see them as lawyers. They just don't
Yeah.
come to us down the road. So I hear it. I hear rumors of claims being paid. I just don't,
It's like a magical unicorn.
yeah,
We've heard it exists, but there's no proof.
right, in a far off land.
No, I mean, I agree with, I mean, you're right, Chad, right? But it, and I hate the excuse too, right? But it is smart in terms of pushing the responsibility off. Okay, so that's AI kind of in the initial evaluation. What we're saying is they're taking those photos, they're running it through, but then they're kind of making every claims decision using AI, aren't they? Some of them.
Yeah, I think it's exactly what is happening in every other industry is that they're trying to cut down on the number of people that they have working for them and doing, there's a lot of insurance companies that operate by committee where they're meeting and they're determining in a committee what the situation is regarding a claim. And I think that they're shutting down those committees uh, in lieu of trying to get AI to be more developed and not have the decision made by committee anymore, but have the decision made by their proprietary AI program. I'm not insinuating that they're using like ChatGPT, but it's definitely some type of LLM, I would say, that is um, making certain decisions nowadays.
Yeah, there's definitely letters that we see that appear to be AI generated. Fun fact, there's like a spacing thing for those of you listening at home with AI. AI kind of types with some interesting spacing, and sometimes you can actually catch an AI generated letter by running it back through a word processor. Waste of your time because it doesn't really help you at the end of the day in terms of handling cases. But
No.
any of you that use ChatGPT or whatever and have gotten stuck in these logic loops where it keeps spitting the same thing out over and over again, had a claim in California, wildfire claim. And basically it was a jewelry claim. There was a bunch of jewelry that had been destroyed in the fire. It was a separate policy for the jewelry. They way underpaid, triggered appraisal. They kept writing back over and over and over, like obvious AI generated letters that the policyholder had not properly triggered appraisal because they had not alleged a dispute and named an appraiser, which of course had been done in the very first letter and had been done like another 7 or 8 times. And it finally got filing like a Department of Insurance complaint, which is a whole separate ball of worms, to get them to get someone from State Farm on the phone that actually was a human that would actually look at it and realize they were just denying appraisal for like 6 months on false bases the whole time, right? It was crazy. And it wasn't, this particular policyholder wasn't trying to litigate. They were just trying to get a fair price for their jewelry. So you got to watch these logic loops too with these claims handling.
I mean that's exactly why you can't take the human element out of any of this. And we've seen it in litigation of the hallucinations with the case law that just creates false case law. And I always tell people because I guess I'm a little more um, into AI and LLMs like ChatGPT or Perplexity or things like that than some people, and they look to me and I just say if it comes up with the perfect case or it comes up with the perfect explanation, it's probably wrong, and
Mm-hmm.
you have to argue with it. And that's what I'm concerned with on the carrier side is that if they're using these types of chat gpt type of programs and they're not challenging it like a human person would, we've all had the special adjuster who has gone to bat, not in a inappropriate way, but has gone to bat for a claim to overturn it. We've all had those adjusters on the defense side that says, no, no, no. After looking at everything, we believe that this should be covered, and they go to bat for you with the higher ups. And I think that's going to be eliminated without the human element of really determining the entire totality of circumstances with a claim.
Yeah, there's already the ones, and look, those are the best ones. I love those people, but there are the flip side ones where it doesn't matter how much evidence you show them, they're just like, we stand by our position, right? Anyone that thinks that the AI the carriers are using is going to be trained to do anything other than that is on crack. They're absolutely going to be trained to stand by the position that was made the first time.
Right. Yeah. Those standby letters are wonderful to receive. Yeah, we provided you a myriad of evidence that it should be covered, but we're standing by our position. Okay. Well, that's why there's so much litigation. I mean, that's why throughout the country there's more and more litigation. In Texas and California and Colorado, increasingly, those states are increasingly becoming like the Wild West of Florida that kind of stirred up stuff and reforms happen. Well, they call it reforms. It's kind of just a kibosh or
Yeah, it wasn't reforms as much as like going back to medieval times, but
right.
yes. All right, well, we don't have a ton of time left. We got about 5 minutes left. So what I'd like you to talk about is some of the AI tools that people should be using in this industry that maybe they're not currently.
Well, the one that I use on a daily basis is Perplexity, and Perplexity is it's like an LLM where it uses AI. It's not like, but it also draws from others. So it's kind of a derivative LLM, I call it. I actually don't know the proper name for it, but what it does is it draws on research. So you'll type it in, it'll come up with a thought process like a normal chat GPT would, but it actually does the research in order to back it up, and it tells you the sources. Much like the thinking phase of the chat GPT, but much more advanced. And so it's drawing from a lot of different sources, LLMs, in order to think with you, so you're not stuck in that loop, and it's using real sources. The other one that I really enjoy is Notebook LLM. It's through Google, and Notebook LLM is an amazing tool. It's an absolutely amazing tool. What I use it for is I'll put my case information in, none of the confidential information, but I'll put the case information in, I'll put the complaint in, I'll put the response to the complaint, the initiating pleadings and some other information and some discovery and photographs. And what Notebook LLM does is it draws its research from the documents that you upload, or the YouTube. You can do it through YouTube because it's a Google program. And you can also then take it and it synthesize it into a podcast form. So what's happening is you are listening to your case being read back to you. And for strategy reasons, it's really, really a great tool to utilize so that you can listen to your actual case and then determine if there's any holes or things that you want to change.
Interesting. So, while most people, have their drive to work and they're listening to Taylor Swift or whatever, you're listening to case strategy.
Yeah, and then I fall asleep at the wheel, pretty much.
Which then helps the personal injury attorneys make more money.
Yeah,
So, it's a cycle of life.
Yes, I'm helping them. What is it? Kissing babies and saving lives.
There you go. So, Notebook, Perplexity, anything else that you're using or that you're interested in these days?
Definitely ChatGPT. I also like, I think that AI without automation is something, it's like a remote control car without batteries, something like that. It's the engine that really makes things tick. And so I encourage people that when they're using ChatGPT, which is, obviously widely used, that they're also thinking about automations that they can do to make sure that the task flows in their house, or I'm sorry, in their work, or even in their house, are working properly. What do I mean by automation? I mean that something triggers something else, that will trigger something else, right? So let's talk. Let me just give an example real quick of a way that an automation can work. Because when people talk about AI, they talk about it where eyes glaze over, and systems and processes and things like that, where no one understands what exactly you're talking about. So you can have an email come into your office or your house, and then you can have once that happens, that's called a trigger. And what it does is, through automation, it can be sent to ChatGPT. ChatGPT can render it and develop a draft response to your email automatically. And then it will send it back, and it'll give it to you in order to read before sending it out. Very important. You read before sending it out. And
Go
then,
figure.
yeah. And so that's an example of an automation supersizing your AI.
Yeah. And these are things like that's like a very basic level. Like Chad is very big on automation. He talks about it a lot. We could do a whole separate podcast on that actually. But it's accessible, right? And if you don't know how to automate things, some of these AI systems like ChatGPT will actually walk you through some automation opportunities and how to set it up. So if you're sitting there wondering what the heck automation is, it's essentially making things happen without you having to manually do them. So right now, if your AI workflow looks like I go do this, or this thing comes in and then I put it in AI and then I take it out of AI and then I do this with it, there might be steps that you don't have to take yourself. And if you don't know how, there's people you can hire to do it, but you also can ask AI itself, hey, what if I don't want to take this email and automatically put it in? And it will tell you, oh, well, what do you use? Okay, well, here's how you set up this kind of API, or here's a service that will do it for you.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, absolutely. The other really important automation tool, to get into automation for just a second, is your phone. And specifically, I have an iPhone, and I have automations plugged in. I have automations plugged in there as well, that at a certain time something happens, and those are triggers and things like that. So yeah, I mean, and that is something else you can ask AI. It's funny, most of the time you can't ask something what is wrong with that in order to fix it. But with AI, you can ask AI what is wrong with you in order to fix the AI or the automation. So
yeah, no, it's amazing.
Yeah,
it's amazing. Chad, we're almost out of time. Before you do go, though, what does it mean to you to level up?
It means to bring up your game to the professional level, civility, and just making sure that you're on top of every single thing in your industry. And that's one of the things that I did get to enjoy, was your Level Up Summit. And that was something that I really thought of, or that I was thinking about after the Level Up Summit, is how many different types of industries that I was able to hear about that I can take from on a daily basis. So negotiation tactics and things like that. And it's just very important that you're well prepared and leveling up to the competition that you may have.
Well, Chad, I couldn't agree more. And, one of the things that we value about our relationship with you is we're always pushing each other to be better. And you're a great colleague, but also a valued friend. And thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely, Galen. Thanks for having me on here, and hope that the people listening in their cars are not glazed over. Okay, drive safely, everyone.
Drive safe. I'd like to thank Chad Robinson for joining us on the podcast. Chad's commitment to AI and automation has really placed him as a solo practitioner at the forefront of first-party property practice. As Chad demonstrated, just knowing how carriers are using AI, knowing how you can use it, and then adding that extra layer of automation will really bring you to the next level of your game, whether you're a lawyer, an adjuster, or just in the industry. Follow us on Apple, Spotify, or your favorite podcast player.